When I started this blog, what was on the 30th of May 2011, it was already clear that this incident would go on for quite a time, but the information was not, you couldn't get so easy information already there. And then therefore I started, or I felt I should witness this, or I should make a database to keep information, to make it available, and to put it together. But it is not, it's a collection, it's an archive, it's not a research on a special point, it's more kind of painting an image, making a picture of a certain time. It just happened through my lifetime. And nowadays, I mean, I just can be a witness to that. That seems to be quite a strong thing. And of course, people not wanting to know, they belong to it in a way, whatever. I just can witness it and maybe, I don't know, or that's the point, or whatever. And then I'm kind of at that moment, I'm kind of at an artistic position. I'm the one who looks on the world, and I'm witnessing things. Therefore, at that moment, I feel I'm an artist. Yeah. And I try to find a language for what I'm doing. And I thought it was the most not artistic language to choose. Because everything artistic, I would be ashamed of to do something artistic by seeing that. You know, to do something playful or aesthetic or whatever.
But then I think the language you have to choose has to be hard enough to reflect the hard realities of what it is. Yeah. It's being said, art has to do that, otherwise art is dead, and which it probably is anyway. But in the sense that there's no more place for art, there's only place for discussions of such things, because life is being threatened on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. We're sitting here in a completely luxurious environment here, in a very middle class setting. And we're very, very lucky to be doing that in a city in Berlin, where, only, we think of several hundred miles away, where people, this old debate, people's rights are being taken away with. I think there is almost no more place apart from to have these discussions and to bring it down to this level. Raise it up to this level, as you do.
And want to look on scientific and political implications of the disaster. And the first point is to talk about dimensions, measurability, and time frames in the atomic dimension. That's a general thing. And there I wanted to start with this piece of science you may know. It's a periodic system of elements. That's something it shows all the elements on Earth, and when chemists and physics found out about these elements, there was kind of a big surprise that these elements have a certain system. The system is not put over it, that the elements are given the system, but they come with the system. And it is about similarity. Actually, it was phenomenological in the beginning, and this system then was leading to a much older theory that the whole material world is put together by very small pieces, atoms, which have a different quality. I mean, that's what you all know. And then these atom theories, they are already from the ancient Greeks, and they developed especially in the last century to a quite explicit point. But still, the atom is something what is an imagination, let's say like this. still nowadays, even if there is a special kind of microscope, the tunnel microscope, where there could be seen that materia is out of little pieces. In spite of that, what is an atom is still more or less an idea, and that's because this is something so small in the scale that we actually cannot explore it really. I mean, there are descriptions, but they are so complicated, mathematically so complicated, that what is an atom can't be communicated very easy, or is not, is still in what you all have learned in school about atoms are these models of thinking, and they are visualizations which are trying to catch something about it or to give us a picture, but it is not the truth about the atom. Nevertheless, elements can be described and can be characterized. And in the whole theory of atoms, this is then related to special visualizations. There's more instability in the material world than stability. There's an enormous power. That the power in an atom is about 100 millions bigger than any power by burning something on Earth. I mean, it is a completely, and on the one side, you know, the nucleus and the electrons inside an atom are so small that an electron really can't be described, not located. And on the other side, in these very small pieces, there's an immense power. And that is what I think this is what we are dealing with. We are dealing with a very small scale, and on the other side, a huge scale, and again a scale what is bigger than everything known before. Plutonium then has a half-life of 24,000 years. That is already a dimension. The plutonium, what is set free in Fukushima nowadays, will be active 24,000 years. That is a dimension what is again so big that we can't experience it, that we are beyond human experience. Therefore, this is the whole thing, not only that we don't have any senses for radioactivity, we can't see it, taste it, whatever, we don't have any senses, we can't even imagine it. Yeah, and here is to be seen rise and decline of radioactivity was inside the reactor. And you can see this, and now it was the question, what does it mean? And again, we have to make an image or a picture. I mean, this means kind of a boiling process, but not like water boils, but this radioactivity goes up, and then the substance releases steam, and this is radioactive steam, which tries to find its way out, and did of course, and goes into the air. And these steams have then different colors, what could be seen on the webcam of Fukushima, because different kind of steam came out. And after the boiling process of radioactive steam, the activity and temperature goes down again, and then the material is able to induce by itself, and that is by a chain reaction criticality again, and it again comes to an active phase, and things like that. And these processes are happening as long as there is a material and the temperature is high enough, but the temperature rises with these processes. It can rise itself. And it is an enormous energy, what will last a long time. And these processes, I mean, this was in May last year, but these things are going on inside these reactors still. It is in the melting, where the meltdown happened. It's still ongoing, and it is a process until the material really will be cold enough, or it will be kind of everything as steam in the air. And therefore, this will last decades. But the danger as such, who is going to have cancer, and how will that be? And will someone have cancer because from radiation, or will someone have cancer because he's a smoker? Or, I mean, all these things, this will stay unclear, and we have these problems after Chernobyl. A lot of things never will be clear. We don't know. I mean, and if there is not a statistic, we won't see, okay, it is really 1 million more cancer deaths in the next 10 years. Therefore, again, it is very hard to experience. People just don't know. Will I be the one? Or will my child be the one? We just have one thing clear: fetuses, unborn children, and pregnant women are very much more in danger. I mean, there is a hierarchy, of course. As younger the person is, the higher the danger is for cancer by radiation. And this is because of the activity of the cells, of the growing activity. And therefore a child, or children in general, are much more in danger than older people, women more than men.
What has the response been like to your blog? Like, since is it just like people following it, or do they actually engage you?
Yeah, there are people following, and an increasing number. It depends a bit what happens beside the blog. When these radio shows started, it went up, or sometimes it is discussed in different medias. Then it went up very much. Then at quieter times as well. Yeah. And I mean, and sometimes people are writing, but it's not very often. But it is. Sometimes I get some feedback, or sometimes someone is telling me that he's using it. So, but it's not a huge thing. No.
But do you see it as a form of resistance in itself? This idea of just accumulating this information, because from my perspective, there doesn't seem to be much being published at all anymore in the same way as it was last year. I mean, it just dropped off. It's as if the event is over or something.
Alina, we don't hear. We don't hear.
The acoustic is very bad.
We don't hear and don't see you.
I'm just really close. I was asking her if the blog itself was a form of resistance in the sense of gathering the information, simply because, from my understanding of it, the information is quite dispersed right now, and in comparison with last year, when there were, something was being published every day, and now it's as if the event is over, that time is over, and I guess I just wondered what Susanne's position was in relation to forms of resistance, I guess.
Yeah, of course, resistance, but on the other hand, I mean, I feel it's a resource for, in the end, for other people, even if it might be more long-term, and I think it's not over. I mean, maybe the journalistic part of it is at the moment quiet, but I mean, imagine if there happens really something, then, and the one thing I say, I mean, most of the things already happened. I mean, we have this increase, and to work on it, to be aware of this increase of radiation around the world. I mean, and some people say if the number 4 reactor will collapse, or the building will collapse, then they would leave the northern hemisphere. That's one of the advices. I don't know, yeah, but then is the question, do you leave the place where you live, or don't you, or things like that? I mean, anyhow, whatever happens, I feel the witnessing, being conscious of a situation, is something important. That you be aware of what kind of world you are living in. I mean, that is, it's already, otherwise you are driven from one daily problem to the next. You know what it is, and this is something quite ongoing, and obviously conditions on the earth are changing by that. And I mean, it's not only the Fukushima thing, there are so many plants around, and you can just wait for the next thing happening. Yeah.
First, I would like to make a short announcement in relation to your very interesting talk. We will show here at the same place on Sunday at 8 p.m. a film about the resistance in Japan. It's called Radioactivists, and we will have the director of the movie here, and you are all invited to see this film. It's at 8 o'clock on Sunday, 17th, next Sunday. Yeah, just maybe a short comment. As you said right now, the threat that is coming out of this disaster is just beyond any imagination, and I think nobody can really relate to this, and everybody is just guessing, and it's just too big. We had never had this situation in this dimension before, but the interesting part for me is that, as you also showed, the problem is related to many other problems. For example, that you showed the industrial complex that is connected with that, and this is also connected with the United Nations, and this is connected to different other structures. We are also dealing with when we are occupying places like this, so we see that all this is a big waking up call for us to really come together to resist against atomic energy or against other power structures. So in this case, maybe humanity needs something like this to really find a common strength to resist against so much that's going wrong. But in this case, it's very good to have collected information, because only in this way we can start to understand what all is included in these very complex issues.
Of course, there is much more information. I mean, as long as you work on it, you feel I felt that it is only a bit. You know, you could say much more. There is much more information around. People are doing research, and about atomic industry, I found very interesting work from the last year, and things like that. But I mean, first step is just I felt I want to understand. I mean, not that I don't know several things in beforehand, but to understand what is going around. I mean, and how is it related? And of course, I felt it is a very special kind of industry, how it is organized and how its corporate identity is. It is really a special phase of worldwide capitalism. What is in the nuclear industry presenting, or what is coming towards us. and the brutality, then if these incidents are there just, I mean, nobody takes responsibility then. And all these things. The brutality, what is in it. And then on the other side, what I felt, that it is about knowledge as well, this kind of knowledge we are having only a few decades about the atomic world and where does it lead to.
I think it's very interesting to have this collection of your research, if you want to say so.
Do you think so?
As you see. Yes, I think so. I mean, for me, I think so insofar as I can see the whole takeover, like for Fukushima, its measurability is not given. We can't measure it.
I see more the insufficiency of science. I mean, I feel that it is so insufficient to do those things, that the impetus to the military and the economic impetus is so strong and science is so weak against that. That's what I feel. You know, science is not even able to give a frame for that. Science is so fragile in the end. That's what I feel. I feel it is more.
I mean, the major ministry in Tokyo is the Ministry of Science, directly next to the Imperial Park.
Yeah.
Which is also in the comic strip Mr. Atom, no? Where it becomes the main office of the kind of comic strip which was like very important in Japan, no? But
it is not then science, but it is this market around science. What is then already that's what I find in the industries. I mean, it is a market about this, and in the end, you know, it's so hard even to have a mathematical expression for the place of where an electron is. It's not, you know, it is so hard, it is so complicated. And then even if the knowledge is already so, I mean, it's not really developed, the knowledge, and then already it is, there's a military complex and these interests are so strong.
Yeah, but you said even in the beginning that there is no way to understand matter beyond you need to believe. I mean, there is more amount of belief in it. You know, there's more instability than stability. There's all these issues. So, in a sense, it's pointing to something that actually is. It's not just the fragility of the scientific position in terms of power, because of course also the scientists are paid. I mean, those scientists who work I mean, we don't forget that many of them are paid by people and should say no, thank you very much, or something like that. They don't do it. Yeah?
Of course, they would have a responsibility. These discussions that the scientist has to be responsible for. This discussion has disappeared completely. That's what I would say. Yeah, that obviously scientists are not anymore responsible. You know, that's,
corrupt.
Yeah, but there is also some.
Or they're inside of these systems. They are not even corrupt. They are drivers of that in a way.
Because they're working for institutions only mostly, and the institution takes the responsibility away from them, maybe. I don't know why people don't take responsibility anymore in any case for what they do. It's the whole society, not only scientists, it's everyone.
Yeah, this is because of bureaucracy, because bureaucracy is made to deal with responsibility. And Japan is an extreme example of bureaucratic regulation of society. And this is like, and bureaucracies are made to depict the complex of taking responsibility.
Totally out of control.
But there's also, I think there's another element, like you mentioned that the government's a criminal. There's also the kind of criminal nature of strategies of avoidance, and I find this backup city an example of that. And also, I mean, in the 70s in England, when there was this big problem with Windscale, the reactor, they just renamed it Sellafield, So people who weren't there in the 70s, you know, younger generations have no idea of the history of this place, Windscale, where me as a child growing up at that time, it was absolutely terrifying. And also the combination of the name, wind, and seeing these kind of dark reactors. And this idea of having a kind of backup city pushes, it kind of brings your idea of this kind of untouchability of the atoms, and also the incomprehensibility of the scale of it. Well, it doesn't matter because we have a backup city anyway. With a casino, I remember seeing this. So this is kind of the bureaucracy actually helps to build these strategies of intransparency, which is also criminal in that sense. And I don't know if you did research on the Minamata disaster as well. There was a mercury disaster in Japan. When I was there in '98, and I haven't researched this further, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I remember there were two maps, one in Japanese and one in English. And the one in English does not have the contaminated places on it. The one next to it in Japanese does. I don't have the photos of it anymore, but I was really shocked. And I mean, please research that further if it's not correct. But I seem to remember it being the case. So these strategies of avoidance are also criminal in that sense.
Yeah, but it's a different thing here, which I don't know which is it really related. I mean, you know, is the invisibility and the undescribability of atomic scale, is it related that it evokes criminal behavior? I don't know. I mean, I just can. There is a coincidence in a way, but is it only with this? I couldn't make a statement.
I don't think it's inherent, is it? But I think it comes back to your idea of marketing as well. The idea that that everything can be kind of pushed around and resold, regardless of how evil it is. Just on kind of pure marketing levels. And I think that's the problem, in the sense that science then becomes doubly invisible or invisible again.
To hide. In Europe also, because there is an area that is not accessible, people are not allowed to live there, so they build a natural park that then again makes it look peaceful, nature and so on. I mean, it's also a PR strategy.
Yeah, and look on their websites, they're just working with this. They come along as the most peaceful, most nature-loving industries. Yeah, it is. I think. Yeah.
And I mean, as this kind of power production is so centralized, then they can really transport the power on long wires. Like Fukushima was actually the main power plant, one of the main power plants for Tokyo, or the area of Tokyo, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
And it is really far distant. But having such a centralized power, you can make a long distance transport of it. And then this is a very rural area, which is industrially underdeveloped, and this is also typical for most power plants in all over the world, that you do it in places, or you try to do it in places which are industrially underdeveloped, because you always have the option to do long distance transport of this kind of produced power. Because it's about centralization, and nuclear power is totally on centralization of power, in both senses, as your blog always shows, that there is the idea of political power and the idea of energetic power.
Yeah, that was from the very beginning.
Yeah. It's striking. It's striking.
Yeah, but this was the secrecy of nuclear research. It's military research.
Yeah, but actually, what I found, I mean, that you find out it's not clean and healthy, but it's not even necessary. I mean, it shows that these countries can do quite well without the nuclear. They could just shut them down. I mean, there would be no lack. They could do without. I mean, it's not even, nobody needs this especially. Every country is able to produce enough power without that. That's the really tricky thing. Why did that happen? I mean, and why? Yeah, I mean, of course, there was a lot of money earned. It's clear, but it was especially earned by this construction, getting the governments, getting the publics paid That was the main thing. It was an amazing amount of money.
But I mean, something you didn't mention, which is one of the main source for nuclear power as a civil structure, is that it's the possibility for nuclear bombs. And this has been the main driving force in all countries that have nuclear power, the option to develop it further into, or the ability to develop it further into bombs. And that's why the government highly subsidized it, or still do. And this is still today. I mean, so this, in terms of constellation, this makes it even more so that this is, I mean, this is a byproduct of a military exercise that then is paid to this. I mean, the industry is using the interest of the government to produce military weapons, and then sells it as cheap and healthy.
Yeah. Anyhow, I mean, I think it may be in the 70s,